Well, when that call came through, almost lost my mind. Yes, when that call came through, almost lost my mind. Because I strictly understood
that you had crossed that line. Roll them bones, roll them bones, roll them bones, roll them bones.
I guess there's nothing in this world that can make you stay. Nothing in this world that can make you stay. Oh Lord, I got a word in mind.
No matter anyway, roll them bones, roll them bones, roll them bones, roll them bones.
Well, goodbye, brother. Sad to let you down. Yes, goodbye, brother. Sad to let you down. Oh, well, I'll never see your face
until the next go round. Roll them bones.
What happens after we die? No one knows. What is the meaning of life? The meaning of life is to live. Is God a projection of man or man a projection of God? It does not matter. And so goes my inner monologue. Obviously, I'm thinking about money. On my desk are 3 crisp, brand new $1 bills, courtesy of the folks from Arbitron. They asked me to monitor my radio listening habits and were willing to pay. I fondled the new bills indecently. Money this clean would make anyone want more. Okay, my little book would come in the mail. How'd I wish to be addressed? I could have been Mr., but then I thought Mr. Baer is redundant. The doctor, Mr. Baer? I don't think I could pull that off. I mean, would you want me removing your gallbladder? Then I was given a third choice, Reverend. The Reverend Mr. Baer. Now that had a ring. In my new capacity as Reverend, I began to change my habits on the dial. Instead of my usual NPR stations, I took to listening to backcountry preachers going about fire and brimstone. Maybe this was my calling. I soon could hear the Reverend Mr. Baer's radio ministry, a kinder, gentler, weirder, lustier ministry. Imagine Jimmy Swaggart rejoicing in the contradictions of his conflicted nature, live from the no-tell motel. She was naked, and it was good, and it was bad. Praise Jesus. Well, maybe not, but I'm convinced there are others like me with no affiliation to a religious community who still yearn for a relationship with God. For many in this sizable and neglected demographic, their traditional religious upbringing left them unsatisfied. They got bogged down in the flim-flam, the supernatural razzmatazz, all that business about sin, and couldn't get beyond and to the essence, that God need not be any more complicated than breathing in and out. This is the constituency I want to reach. We all need faith, we all need to believe in something, and we all need to make a buck. In Raleigh, there seems to be a church on every corner. It must be a good business, why not? If my radio ministry took off, I could buy a starter church for a reasonable price. In fact, a prefab would only cost a couple $1,000. I'd put it in the woods down by my pond, maybe cut a deal with my neighbor Ed so that worshipers could park on his property and he could drive them over on his golf cart. But what kind of church? Since I'm more of a thou shall than a thou shall not type and a do-it-yourselfer when it comes to matters spiritual, how about the Church of Direct Revelation? I'll keep it simple, really simple. No text, no doctrine, no mythology, no mystification, no iconology, no ritual, no personification, no anthropomorphism, no heaven, no hell, no crucifixion, no resurrection. Strip it all away. What's left? Hey, baby, you're alive. Is that not enough? Now inhale. That's it. In and out. In and out. Look, listen, dig the vibes, pass the plate. In the Church of Direct Revelation, there will be no recruiting for converts, no evangelizing of any sort, no dogma, but dogs are allowed. Our God doesn't care if you smoke, He doesn't care what you smoke, He doesn't care if you drink, bet on the ponies, or have impure thoughts, constantly. He only cares that you are kind, open to beauty, a seeker of wisdom, an aspirant to grace, and most importantly, aren't lacking in humor. The CDR isn't the only way, just one way. Earl and Pearl Swine, think twice. So, for all of you already initiated, spread that love today and mail your contributions to the CDR in care of the Reverend Mr. Baer. And now that we've taken care of tithing, let's get on with the show.
All the birds have started cooing. All the birds have started cooing.
Here you go, Miss Lewis, and may I say you're looking mighty fetching today, said Dr. Tolliver, handing the bottles of Enderal and Valium over the counter to my mother. Mama stood there wearing a brown pleather mini dress with matching cape with gold buttons that she had copied by one of the local black seamstresses from a page torn out of a 1968 Vogue magazine. She twisted flirtatiously in her brown leather riding boots. "Oh, don't I look good every day?" She laughed and tossed back her peroxided hair. "Why, sure you do, Ruth, but the outfit's right out of Hollywood," he grinned. The ensemble was indeed extreme for Wadesboro, with the hem at least 8 inches above her knees, and the soft, pliable fabric clung to all the right curves. Mama winked and turned, walking out the store past the aisles of rectal thermometers and enema bottles, castor oil and cheap music boxes. I got in the back seat of the LTD Country Squire station wagon, and off we drove for the ride back home. "I think Dr. Tolliver overcharged me for these Valium. I'm going to give him a piece of my mind next time I see him," Mama said to herself as she placed a tablet in her mouth. "And you stay away from his son Cotton. He did too much LSD in Vietnam, and it drove him crazy. He was such a handsome, clean-cut boy, but now he looks like some kind of wild mountain hippie. And they caught him exposing himself on the steps of the library just the other day," she warned. Mama reached under the seat and pulled out a half-emptied pint of brandy nestled in its brown paper bag chrysalis. With one hand, she tossed back a long, sultry sip of the amber liquid. As her head descended post-gulp, her eyes caught a glimpse of me in the rearview mirror. "Screech!" The brake screamed as we slid to a halt in the middle of Washington Street. "Where'd you get those?" she demanded, staring back at me playing with 6 candy cane striped pencils. I sat there motionless, frozen witless by the ferocity of this southern lioness. With one swipe, I felt the sting of a slap across my face, and I could imagine her handprint embedded there like the smoting mark of Cain for all eternity. "Did you steal them?" she demanded. "Yes, ma'am," I hesitatingly volunteered. "Well, what the hell did you get me? I could use some lipstick. My color's called Torrid, just in case you want to remember for next time," she snapped as she hit the accelerator, and off we went. Reflections of pine trees and passing crows licked the car windows as we continued the ride, the scent of Jean Naté body splash and Kentucky bourbon blending exotically in the summer sun. We swerved into the driveway, barely missing the mailbox, and the car came to an abrupt halt in the backyard, inches away from the old oak. Mama opened the car door and collapsed on the gravel, arms and legs akimbo. "Mama!" I screamed, jumping from the car door limp body. Mama, get up!" I pleaded, tugging at her cape. The dogs emerged from the woods, tails wagging, their poor canine brains incapable of contemplating the unfolding tragedy before them. On the car's radio, Kenny Rogers never missed a beat and kept pleading for Ruby not to take her love to town. "Mama, Mama, Mama!" I cried at her lifeless body, and then summoning up my courage, I took off like a sprite, running up Highway 74 towards Beecham's store, some half-mile up the road. My breath became labored, my legs on fire as I pressed on my frantic journey to save my dying mother. Tears streamed down my face as I knocked on the screen door, screaming, "Help, help! My mama's dead!" "Oh, Lord, have mercy, you poor baby," said Miss Beecham, as she grabbed me into her calico softness and hugged me tight. "Woodrow, call the law. Something's happened to Ruth Lewis," she shouted to her husband. I was thrown in the back of the old heather pink Ford, and off we drove, tires growling with urgency on the hot Anson County pavement. "Where's she at, baby?" inquired Miss Beecham as we drove in the yard. "There she is," I cried, pointing to the limp, lifeless figure on the gravel, surrounded by our dogs, licking her face, hands, and knees. "Oh, sweet Jesus, the dogs are eating her," Woodrow Beecham stammered as we all jumped from the car. "Ruth, Ruth, can you hear us?" Miss Beecham pleaded as she lifted my mother's head and smoothed the gravel from her brow. A low moan emitted from my mother's crimson lips. On the radio, the monkeys sang about taking the last train to Clarksville, and Woodrow Beecham reached into the car to turn off the still-running engine. Behind us, the Anson County Rescue Squad lumbered into position, and several husky volunteers in gray pants and white shirts, emblazoned with the county seal, stood there staring and gawking at my mother's vulnerability. never having seen a pleather mini dress quite that short and revealing on such a bright and sunny day. One of them pulled the empty brandy bottle from the front seat and gave a knowing look. "Is my mama dead?" I asked. "No, she's just drunk, son," came the reply as he took a long sip from the bottle and passed it to his friends. The men each grabbed a limb and hauled Mama in the house. "Put her on the couch," said Miss Beecham. "That way she'll be close to her cigarettes when she wakes up." Woodrow gave me a pat on the head as they walked out of the door, and I slouched on the carpet to draw fire-breathing dragons in my sketchbook as the last of the sunlight danced across the living room floor.
Shut up and meditate. Shut up and meditate. Shut up and meditate.
Don't wanna hear you talking nice, cutting off the slice. Don't wanna see you blow me a kiss, that's just lip service. And all the while I'm feeling mighty strange, 'cause I'm still shaking down the couch for change. It's the money, it's all about the money, the sweet crazy money. Do it for the money. We played the Black Mountain Music Festival, and one of the guys on the bill was an acoustic guitar player named Richard Gillowitz, who, although very nice, is a little weird, and he's like if Stephen Wright played like Leo Kottke, basically, and very, very, very talented guitar player, extremely talented. Could tune on the fly. Unbelievable. Anyway, but Gillowitz was kind of a nut, you know, and we liked him, and since his music had almost bore no resemblance to ours, you know, we wanted to play shows with him, and we played a show in Florida where he lived. I think we did Gainesville, something like that. And the guy, we just realized that the guy was a prime target for a practical joke, and since we were inveterate practical jokers, we'd almost run out of material on each other. You know, we never lost an opportunity to, you know, knock somebody else around. Gillowitz he had a big target painted on his back. The guy almost had no sense of humor, you know. He never understood when you were joking or not. So we play the show with him. We say, look, come back to the hotel room. We'll have a few beers, whatever, you know. He's like, okay, but I need to go get my dog. I'm going to go home, I'll get my dog, and then I'll come back, I'll meet you guys at the hotel room. Great, okay, so we pull up in the parking lot. I'm like, we got to knock Gillowitz. So here's what we're going to do. So we go in the hotel room. It's me, it's Kenny, it's Chris P., it's Towsy the merch guy. I think that was it. We go in the hotel room. We turn the shower on hot all the way, leave it for about 10 minutes. We turn off all the lights, except one, which I put a salmon-colored shirt over the thing so it cast a lurid glow. We dumped all of the merch money on the bed, thousands of dollars in cash. We dealt ourselves a hand of poker. We put a used condom or a condom wrapper on the floor, and then like maybe an open book, maybe something like Tropic of Cancer, I don't know what, on the table. Took off all our clothes, and by this time, it was like a sauna in there with the hot water coming out of the shower, and the walls were sweating, and you could see your footprints in the carpet. It was an awesome tableau, and so here we are, ready to greet Richard Gillowitz, who didn't expect this coming, of course. And so a knock comes on the door, and Ken comes up to the door, naked as the day he came into this world, and he says, "Oh, hi, you're right in time." And Gillowitz takes a step back, and Gillowitz's dog takes a step back, and he beholds this image, this mise en scène. Whatever is happening in this room, this is what this band does after a show. And he's freaked out. He won't come in. We're like, "Come on in. Well, you're just in time. We'll deal you a hand. Come on and play a hand. It's a pretty high ante, but you can be in on the game if you want to be." You guy. Dude won't come in the room. Won't come in. We finally, this was the triumph of the practical joke. We finally got him to come in, sit down, and play a hand. And that's what I thought was the genuine triumph. As long as he was outside the room, the joke wasn't really going to work. It only was going to work halfway. But it really came together when he came in with his dog and played a hand of poker. And then we pulled our clothes out from under the bed. "Oh man, it's just a joke. We were just pulling your leg." He didn't believe us. And he never believed us. And he always thought, and I think he still does, that after a show, we'd go back to the hotel room, strip down, get it nice and hot and moist, and play a hand of poker for cash.
God said to Abraham, "Kill me a son." Abe said, "God, where do you want this killing done?" God said, "Out on Highway 61. And so, like most people, I'd read parts of the Bible, and like most people who have read parts of the Bible, I thought I knew the Bible. But it wasn't until a couple winters ago that I finally decided to read it cover to cover. I was living in the Bible Belt, so besides Gone with the Wind, I felt I needed to know my King James. I was awed by the Hebrew Bible, particularly 1 and 2 Samuel and 1 and 2 Kings. I found the stories profound, strange, sometimes gruesome, and always darkly beautiful. And I loved Ecclesiastes. Vanity, vanity, all is vanity. Says it all, no? The point being we must muddle through as best we can, despite the void. Then the Gospels, particularly the Gospel of John, a transcendent vision, followed by St. Paul. What a salesman. I wouldn't buy a used car from him, but if I owned a PR firm, I'd want him running it, after he had some sensitivity training concerning his gay and female employees. Now, if you think I'm being blasphemous, forgive me, but it's my right. Mel Gibson doesn't own the Bible. Pat Robertson doesn't own the Bible. The Bible is public domain. You can make of it what you will, and you don't have to believe every word to enjoy the wisdom of the ages. But, friend, it is a long read, so I do suggest a comfortable chair.
Shut up and meditate. Yes, it's that old-time religion hour. We're on the road to Zebulon, North Carolina, going to buy a pair of leather chairs to set in front of the fireplace. I tell Sweetie that Zebulon was a son of Jacob and one of the 12 tribes. She rolls her eyes. I say, the South is drenched in the Bible and that I feel like I'm learning the lingo. Sweetie doesn't want to hear about it, but I ramble on. It's a beautiful winter afternoon. It's cold, but the sun is shining and the pines are green. I stick Johnny Cash's 2000 studio album, produced by Rick Rubin, into the CD player in the minivan. After Johnny does a cover of Tom Petty's I Won't Back Down and Neil Diamond's Solitary Man, which really gets Sweetie groaning as I sing, Sue came along, loved me strong, that's what I thought. Me and Sue, but that died too. Then Johnny sings a song about a prisoner on death row facing the electric chair, which he refers to as the mercy seat. I say, Sweetie, see how reading scripture is paying off? It's everywhere. I explain that the mercy seat is where God sits in the Ark of the Covenant, and that God appears as smoke to speak to Moses, and that's why the guy in the song imagines the smoke pouring out of his own head. Finally, just before they pull the switch, the convict admits that he is guilty, and I'm finding my inner man in black, and I miss my exit. But I'm still grooving, and soon the minivan is back on the MapQuest course, and Johnny has moved on, and he's repeating over and over, you know I've got a darkness, you know I've got a darkness. And fortunately for Sweetie, we arrive at the furniture store. Inside, the store is cavernous, room after room of furniture, which is why we made this special trip. The 2 leather chairs are my idea. That's why I'm so enthusiastic about going to a furniture store, which to me is usually like having my gums scraped. New Year's before last, we went to Charleston and stayed in the Wentworth Mansion Hotel that was built as a private home in the late 1880s and is one of the gems of the historic district. There was a small library in the mansion with 2 worn leather chairs and a table with crystal canisters holding port, sherry, and brandy. It was enormously elegant, and I imagined Rhett Butler was in the chair next to me. This is after Rhett had left Scarlett in Atlanta for good to return to the family in town that had spurned him in his youth. So a couple of chairs, a couple decanters. Rhett might be enticed to visit me in Raleigh. We could sit by the fire and get tanked on brandy, and he could tell me about gun running during the Civil War, and he'd be just the eclectic sort to know all kinds of Bible trivia, the weird stuff. I picture us nicely blitzed, and Rhett is still a fierce non-believer, so we don't rhapsodize about the light and the way, no. We dive into the sex scenes. Do you think that Solomon got it on with the Queen of Sheba? And why did the men of Sodom want to gang rape the 2 angels staying at Lot's house? I'm telling him it's something out of Oz, like Vern Schillinger and his Aryan Brotherhood. Rhett doesn't have cable, so I explain, and he reminisces about his old friends who hid under the hood in the early Klan days, and then gets defensive, saying he never joined in and that he was never a racist, and he's telling me about that fine petticoat he gave Mammy when I hear Sweetie saying, "Honey, what do you think?" "Huh?" "The chair," she says, and points. "It's okay," I say, but not what I had in mind. For the first time since our arrival, I focus on the task at hand. Sweetie tells me to be open-minded. That is not a large space we have to work with in front of the fireplace, so that maybe we should consider just 1 chair. I tell her that would defeat the purpose. The point is to have conversations face-to-face, a small table between us, to put the snifters and a table behind for the decanters. I don't tell her about Rhett, although she would be less vexed about me spending time with him than with Ezekiel or John the Baptist. Sweetie takes me by the arm. She senses I'm starting to drift and that I'm overwhelmed by all the furniture. And as if she is holding a balloon by the string, she drags me by the arm, leading me from room to room and repeating that I need to be open-minded because what I want might not be available. And soon I realize she's right. There are all kinds of chairs, but none are what I visualized. This causes me to have one of those epiphanies that are both worrisome and telling about my relationship with reality. I confessed to Sweetie that this store is totally different than what I expected, and that what I imagined was a store that sold nothing but black leather chairs of various shapes and sizes designed specifically for the purpose I had in mind. Sweetie shakes her head. She knows I'm not joking, and I'm not. I don't fret. I adjust quickly to the situation. I sit in several chairs, some high back, some low and plush, some with reclining backs, some stiff and formal. I find one I like, but there is a tag on it indicating it is sold. We meander from room to room, and soon we are not sure where we've been and where we haven't been because it feels like a big maze. Glad I'm not a mouse looking for some cheese. A voice comes over the intercom and announces that the store will close in 5 minutes. Sweetie seems disappointed that our mission hasn't been successful, but I say, this is just a test run. Have to see what's out there after all, and I repeat back all the other homilies she is always telling me when I'm getting impatient shopping. I'm upbeat, and even though it won't be easy to find the chairs I want, something else is delighting me. What I'm visualizing is that after the crowd of shoppers who have made the pilgrimage to Zebulun are ushered out the door, a whole new crew might shuffle in. But these people aren't shoppers. They're the actual denizens of the joint. Whole families who live in these dozens and dozens of rooms by night, as if all the houses on the block have been put under one roof. Or maybe not families. The Whitley would make an ultra-hip nightclub where partiers could hobnob from room to room. Of course, some reliable maid service would be required so the furniture would be spotless and ready to sell to the public the next morning at 9 o'clock. Then I think, what a great house for an eccentric millionaire. I'm still working out the possibilities when we finally shuffle out. There's no problem finding our way out of town. Soon we are again surrounded by trees and the sun is sinking, and out of the corner of my eye, I see a reddish-brown bird, like a starling, but I think it is something else, maybe a purple finch, and the bird takes off into the woods in a flash of red. The red imprints on my mind like a grace note, and I think about Thoreau and Walden Pond, and I pop Johnny back into the machine, and he's singing One, the great U2 song, full of more Bible imagery. From Thoreau, I skip to Ralph Waldo Emerson and the concept of transcendentalism, a belief that nature is divinity and that the individual has the power within to be happy or sinless. I feel happy and sinless, and I'm picking up on the sexual imagery mixed in with the Christ imagery in the U2 song, and John Humphrey Noyce slides into mind. Noyce promoted a doctrine called perfectionism. He founded a utopian community in upstate New York in the 1840s based on a theory called complex marriage, where any man and woman might freely be bedmates. This is when the light bulb goes on. What could be a better business for a wild and woolly utopian free love community in the heart of the Bible Belt than to run a huge furniture barn? Every night would be a freewheeling, free love fest, and by day, good quality furniture at low prices. I would add a second showroom, modest in scope, say 10,000 square feet. I'm seeing a variation of leather chairs set in cozy rooms with fireplaces. I'm seeing a place where the utopians could go for a quiet tete-a-tete on nights when they didn't feel like servicing or being serviced. I mean, truth is, there are times in any marriage, and especially when you're married to the whole community, when a good chair and a good book, or maybe a brandy and a nice chat with civil company would hit the spot more than race your fare. Maybe when I was younger, the perfectionist might have been for me, but now, God knows I don't need the stress of worrying about what Rhett Butler and the missus are doing in the bed and bath display room. I look at Sweetie, I blow her a kiss, and say, "I love you, dear." She says, "Yeah, I love you too. Just keep your eyes on the road."
It's a cheesy, mixed up double world. Would you like some double speak? She said, we were about to meet. I'm not from here, but so are you. Though I may be back next week or not, I may retreat. Met her curbside, sizing up the crowd. She looked right through me like a laser when I found her. It's a cheesy, mixed up double life. Would you like another slice? She said, living what you can't confess. In these dirty double times, how the edge of life unwinds. She said, ends in a double bind. Her look a beckoning, with twilight edging in, like a premonition when I found her smile. Did a little nervous laugh. Did a little nervous laugh.
Blackstone Audiobooks
Gottaville
presents
is in
Coots,
trouble.
a
Lost
new
her
audio
eyes
novel
wants to take
by
over
Steve Baer.
Before and every place,
There was
Dottaville,
becoming a
like
sport
everywhere
called
else,
woke
were
with
the exception.
America
Rules
become
become
one
big
big shopping
shopping
mall,
where anyone might
There
the
was
regular
one
place,
Dottaville,
off the
where
map.
anyone
All
say
Dottaville.
Dottaville. Dottaville.